Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Yep, and the weekend is here. Sports IQ, glad you're with us. Excuse my voice, Larry Smith. Usually I've got a much more pleasant voice than this, but getting a little spring allergies here, so we'll deal with that. We'll get through it. Still a great show, though. Mike Waters is joining us talking about Syracuse basketball. Who will be the head coach to replace the coach who replaced Jim Boeheim? A lot of questions up there in upstate New York, and so we'll talk with him to see kind of what the Orange are thinking as a replacement to fill in for Adrian Autry now that he is out. Also, we'll talk with Ryan Roberts, a little NFL. The big free agency stuff was last week. We'll still see some stuff coming in here, some deals being made. But now we begin to look toward the draft in late April, and so we will talk about that and see what that has in store, get his thoughts on that as well. Obviously, it's a big NCAA weekend, and let's get to some of the highlights from the first big day of the NCAA tournament. Crazy day. We've been told through reliable sources there's not a single Tums to be found on any store shelves in the Triangle area of North Carolina because the Tar Heels were making it look easy with VCU out of the Atlantic 10, leading at one point in the second half by 19 points. But then, like a bad used car, the wheels fell off and the transmission fell out. It was bad. Terrence Hill Jr. of the Rams, 7 of 10 from 3, 23 of his 34 points after intermission, including the deciding three-pointer with 15 seconds left in overtime. The Rams securing the upset win over the six-seeded Blue Blood Tar Heels, 82-78. So the Triangle lost one team last night, another team from the area, the High Point Panthers, taking on the Wisconsin Badgers. And what a day for Chase Johnson. Came into the game having made 64 threes this season, but he also came into the game having made 0 two-point buckets. He was 0 for 4 inside the arc. Johnson hitting 4 threes for the game, then converted on a fast break layup with just over 11 seconds left. The Panthers give the classic 5-12 upset of the Badgers, 83-82. It was insane. High Point was 0-57 against Power 5 conference teams until Thursday, and they finally break through. By the way, High Point, the alma mater of one Tubby Smith, 1998 national championship winner with Kentucky. There you go. If that wasn't enough for the Triangle, though, to be loading up on the antacids, Duke was looking to become just the third 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed in tourney history. The Siena Saints, led by former Syracuse guard Jerry McNamara as a head coach, and the Blue Devils on the ropes, leading them by 11 in the second at half, and that lead was up to 13 in the second half. Before the Blue Devils finally realized they were in a fight. The Boozer brothers, Cam and Caden, combining for 31 points, 15 boards, and 8 assists to help the Devils finally overpower the Saints 71-65. And that's the need for the shelves in the Triangle area to reload on the Tums today. It was scary. It looked like Duke was going to lose for the first 30 minutes of that game. Wow. Other winners included Nebraska getting its first ever NCAA tournament win with a 76-47 win over Troy. TCU putting an end to Ohio State's season. Bruce Thornton's college career as well goes down for the Buckeyes. 68-66 win over Ohio State. Buckyball alive and well in College Station. The Aggies head man Bucky McMillan dialing up the pressure, and that defense which held St. Mary's scoreless for the first 4.5 minutes of the game on the way to a 63-50 win. The Aggies had not held any team this season under 59 points until this game. And of course, it's not only the Division I men who are playing in tournaments. How about this note from the Division III ladies tournament? NYU's record 91-game winning streak is over after a 60-52 loss to Scranton in the Final Four of the Division III NCAA tournament on Thursday night. The Violets, 29-1, had tied the second longest winning streak in NCAA history, trailing only UConn's a 111-game run. NYU had been winning by an average of more than 35 points this season. The Violets broke the Division III record for most consecutive wins, held by Washington University of St. Louis on February 8th with their 82nd consecutive win. Scranton at 32-0 moves on to the title game Saturday to take on the Denison Big Red. All right, producer Tony has a better voice than I do, and he is with our next guest.
Well, yeah, Larry, thanks so much. And, obviously a really exciting first day of the tournament. There's so many other things happening these days in college basketball. It hasn't been nearly as crazy as football. We haven't had as many firings, as many coaches looking for jobs, but there are some key openings that are happening around the country. One of those involves Syracuse University. We're lucky enough to be joined by Mike Waters. He is a Syracuse.com basketball writer. Mike, you've been on the show before. Thank you very much for taking some more time out of what is a really busy time of the year for any basketball writer around the country.
It is definitely our time of year. It's fun, but it's also very hectic. And of course, here at Syracuse this March, they're in the job market for a new head coach. So yeah, it's really crazy right now. A lot of names being floated about, and I'm sure we can get into some of those.
Yeah, let's discuss some of those. On the show earlier this week, we actually had on Ryan Blackwell and talked to him about Siena and the game coming up. And man, they put a heck of a scare into Duke. I know that Jerry is being rumored to be one of the leading candidates. What do you think of his fit if he were to become the head coach at Syracuse?
Oh, in terms of fit, I don't know if there's anybody better out there. I mean, he's an alum. He's played there. He's a legend. He served as an assistant under Jim Boeheim for about 12, 13 years, something like that. After Jim retired, he stuck around for 1 year and was an assistant under Adrian Autry, and then he got the Siena job. So he now has 2 years of coaching experience running his own program very successfully, we should add. I mean, Siena won 4 games the year before he got there. His first year, they won 17. It was an amazing turnaround. And this year, despite a slew of injuries and losing players, he lost a starter early in the year. He lost another starter late in the year. He lost his 6th man in the middle of the year. He guided them to the Metro Atlantic Conference Tournament Championship. He had a really good season, but then he was able to go through the MAC tournament, get that conference's automatic bid. And you mentioned the game against Duke on Thursday night, man. You had an entire nation watching that one as the 16th seed was leading the number 1 overall seed for much of that game. I think it was like 70% of that game Siena led. And man, if he had just had a little bit more depth available or whatever, who knows if he might have been able to pull that off. But the other thing too, when you mentioned the word fit, Jerry's going to know what Syracuse's issues are, what some of the problems are, what's held this program back over the last 5 years without an NCAA tournament appearance. So he's going to be asking the right questions, you would think, in an interview process, and was going to probably have to be, hearing some answers that satisfy some concerns before he takes the job. So there's other names out there, but man, coming off that game on Thursday night, Jerry McNamara's name is on everyone's lips up here in Syracuse.
Yeah, I would imagine, like you said, being that alum, being some of the things that he did as a player at Syracuse. You can go back and look at his highlights even now on YouTube, some of the incredible shots that he made for the Orange back in the day. Are there any other candidates that you're hearing about that they're probably going to interview? Have they even started the interview process yet, or are they going to wait till the tournament's over?
I know they've talked to a couple of coaching prospects, but they weren't described to me as formal interviews. And the situation is complicated by the fact that the school has undergone some major changes already in just the last few weeks. It was just 2-3 weeks ago that they introduced their new chancellor after about a half-year-long search for a new chancellor. The chancellor comes in and his very first job is he's got to get an athletic director. The previous athletic director, John Wildhack, had announced his retirement in mid-February or mid to late February. So the next athletic director was going to want to know who his boss was. So you got the chancellor in first. Within a week, in fact, just a week ago, they hired Brian Blair, who was current athletic director at the University of Toledo. The hiring became official the day after they fired Adrian Autry as the head coach. So now this new athletic director has been in the job a week, is tasked to make a coaching hire and do it quickly, because you got to get a coach in place, as soon as possible, because yes, the portal doesn't officially open until the day after the championship game, but players are deciding now whether they want to either stay at their current school or go into the portal, and it doesn't officially open them, but this is the time period when players are making decisions like that. And their families and their agents are also probably fielding phone calls from coaches, or what's your player going to do? And would he be interested in coming here? And so Syracuse doesn't have anybody making those calls right now.
Yeah, and it's an interesting situation because we've seen the last few years in basketball and even in football sometimes a new coach can come in and normally you got to say, okay, here's my roster, here's what I'm dealt with, here's where I got to make improvements. You have some guys coming in, they don't have a roster. There ain't nobody. I mean, there's a couple of football programs that went in with like 3 kids. And so you got to fill in the portal and basketball teams where everybody left to either follow the old coach or go somewhere else or things like that. So, I mean, that could very well happen at Syracuse as well. And that makes it even harder because now you're really behind the 8 ball, trying to get a program started.
It will be hard. You're like you said, you're behind the 8 ball. Whenever there's a coaching change, there's player movement, more so these days than ever with the transfer portal and players allowed to move without having to sit out a year. So I think I read something a couple weeks ago where schools in Power 5 conferences over the last 2 years that experienced a coaching change, the average player retention was 2.2.
Wow.
So,
Lord.
so yes, there's going to be change. And that makes that coach's job that so much difficult because, I mean, how many times do we hear coaches talk about the benefits of stability and having kids who understand your program and, know each other and play together? And yes, you can build some chemistry over the course of a season. And if, get the right players, you can be successful, but it's hard. So, there will probably be no stability at Syracuse this year. And it could end up looking a lot like NC State, I would think, with had a coaching change last year. Great coach, Will Wade, knows how to build a program. Went out and got a lot of players in the portal. And for a while, they looked great. But, man, they disintegrated down the stretch. I think they won 2 of their last 9 or something like that, despite having what I thought was a really talented roster. So it can be difficult, but we'll see. I guess there's a possibility that if it's Jerry McNamara, there's a few players on the roster that might be more inclined to stay. But we don't know that it's going to be Jerry because there are obviously a whole lot of coaching candidates out there.
Yeah. I mean, the field is, you've got all those mid-majors looking to come up because Syracuse, look, for 25 years, Syracuse was a destination coach. It never changed. You had the same guy in place, so it was never open, but it would have been considered a destination job for a lot of coaches. Now I think some of that luster's off. What are some of the issues you think that Syracuse, not the coach has to address, but the AD and the chancellor need to address with Syracuse to bring it back to that level of prosperity that it enjoyed for a 30-year run?
Well, they need a bigger financial commitment from both the school, donors, fan base, everybody. I mean, Syracuse, the numbers get bandied about. Everybody thinks they know the exact number. I know enough to know that I don't. But it seems to be in the range of, did they have 7 to 8 million a year ago, which is enough to put together a decent team, but it's hard to compete against the elite programs in the ACC. You're not in the same stratosphere as Duke, Carolina, Virginia, Louisville, just off the top of my head. And then there's some other programs that seem to be pretty well funded too. NC State really supported Will Wade this year. SMU, a lot of money there. Miami with a new coach there, Jay Lucas, again. So it's tough to compete in the ACC. They need more money. Who's going to energize the fan base? Jerry could do that. But any coach that came in here and just could somehow get them going again, just get them winning. I think this is a fan base that's ready. The new athletic director, Brian Blair, was introduced to the media, local media, and some local fans yesterday. Talked with the local media, says all the right things, and he comes in with a reputation as being a guy who is a fundraiser, a financial generator, and they need that too because it's not just NIL that we're talking about. It's just the other financial support for the program, more money for staff, more money for assistants. Whatever they had for an assistant, compared that to what Duke paid that same assistant. And then however many assistants Syracuse had, compare that to the number of staff Duke, Carolina, schools like that had. There's a lot of, there's a much more financial commitment that the school has to make. Yeah. But support from the fans helps the school meet those needs too. So it's sort of like a chicken and the egg thing going on here.
Right.
Are some of the fans waiting to see more, a positive progress or results before giving? But if they don't, and if the school doesn't come up with the money somehow, it's hard to win. So
you're kind of in that catch-22 situation almost.
Exactly right. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
We spoke a couple of weeks ago with a UConn writer, and I happened to mention to him talking, wouldn't it be nice to bring the old Big East back together? I mean, that was just a glory day for Eastern Conference basketball, Northeastern basketball. I know why football drives the train, because there's more money in football. But for a school like Syracuse, can you really compete? Do you expect to compete for the upper echelons in football? And if not, wouldn't it be better to try to compete in the upper echelons in basketball and put your money there? It almost seems to me at some point, some of these schools are going to have to make a decision. Can we compete in football? If not, do we want to have more money in basketball and devalue the football program?
Great question. I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make that decision at Syracuse University. I'll leave that to Brian Blair. As if that new guy doesn't have enough on his plate already. It's tough because, unlike Connecticut, Syracuse has a tradition-rich football program. They relied on that football money. They have a building that has to, you have to put fans in there for football. You can't just have the JMA Wireless Dome sitting there. And, I know Connecticut's football program has been really, really competitive. They've really punched up from their weight class quite well. They've thrown some scares into Syracuse in recent years, but it still doesn't seem like that football program is expected to be at the same level as Syracuse. So Syracuse, what was it, back in 2013 or 2012 when they made that decision to go to the ACC along with Pittsburgh and Notre Dame, and Louisville came a year later. BC had gone several years prior. Yep. You made that leap, you made that jump, and I think you're in. I think you're committed. And Connecticut's basketball program had really plummeted during their time in the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah,
I think might have been in worse shape than Syracuse's is now. So that's why they went back to the Big East. And I don't think they had to sacrifice as much as football. I don't know exactly. Obviously, I don't cover Connecticut. I'm not as entrenched there. But in terms of Syracuse, I think there's a commitment to Division I football, and I think that's where you have to stick.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Football does still drive in a lot of places. Football will always drive the train. Right, it's the engine for everything else. Last question for you.
As a traditionalist, though, what your previous conversation?
Yeah,
I would. Yeah, the old Big East was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's got to see that inclination of the Big East and what it was, it would be so cool to have it back the way it was. I mean, nothing against Creighton and some of the other schools now in the Big East, but it's not Big East basketball. It's not. What it was with BC and Villanova, Georgetown, all of that was just the heyday, right?
Yep. And no offense to Wake Forest and Clemson and Florida State, but I know Syracuse fans, in talking to them, they would get a lot more energized to see a basketball game at the Dome between Syracuse and Villanova, Syracuse and St. John's, Syracuse, Connecticut, than they do playing some of the ACC teams. It's hard because, the Big East, they had such history there. They were a founding member. They were there from the outset, and they'll never replicate that.
Right. Sadly, you are correct. Last question before I let you go. As far as the recruiting goes, are they kind of in a holding pattern with the recruits they had on the past? How does this all affect them as they move forward looking for a coach?
Well, they didn't get any commitments from any high school seniors in the 2026 recruiting class. So
Okay.
as of now, the program has no incoming freshmen. Now,
Wow.
they have a lot of players that have eligibility left that were on last year's roster. Now, how many return or not, I don't know. That would be interesting to see. And I would imagine that any coach that does come in, there's a lot of recruits out there who are receiving they're being released from their commitment because coaches at other schools have either been fired or left to take another job or whatever. So those players are free to sign. So there are some recruits back on the market. Likewise, though, I mean, traditionally, you look at it over, not traditionally, there hasn't been long enough to be a tradition yet. But over the last 2 or 3 years of the transfer portal, it seems like when programs undergo change, the transfer portal itself is how you replenish your roster. But like I said, there are quite a few players on the Syracuse roster from this past season. They're still here. They're on campus. They're going to the basketball office where staff are still there, not the main assistant coaches, but staff are still there to help them through things, their academic requirements. If they have questions about the portal themselves, there's people there in the Syracuse basketball office there to help them. So these players are still here. The portal doesn't open officially for another couple of weeks. So there's a chance that a couple of those guys could return.
Perfect. We're going to leave it there. We'll obviously be in touch whenever Syracuse does. We hear the rumors that they've got somebody in mind. We'll want to get your take again when we get to that point. Hopefully soon. Mike Waters, Syracuse.com, basketball writer. Thank you so much for taking some time and speaking with us today.
Great to see you again, Tony. You have a good day.
Thank you very much, sir. And we will be right back on the Sports IQ after a quick timeout.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back. Ready to talk with Tony, catching up there with Mike about Syracuse. Let's see what happens here coming up for the Orange. Let's get to some NBA news. At the trade deadline, most pundits thought the Lakers' lack of moves was just a sign the team was tossing in the towel on the season. Well, not so fast, my friend. Luka Doncic with 60 points. LeBron James had a triple-double on a night where he had led the NBA, or he tied the NBA record for games played, and the Lakers pushed their season-best winning streak to 8 games, 134-126 over Miami. Doncic is the NBA scoring leader. He now has scored at least 30 points in 8 consecutive games and reached 50 for the second time in his last 5 games. James finished with 19 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, triple-double baby, and Austin Reeves scored 18 for the Lakers. In San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama hit a 17-foot pull-up jumper with a second left as the Spurs wrapped up a playoff spot to end the 6th-season drought, beating Phoenix 101-100. Wembanyama with 34 points and 12 rebounds. His winning jumper capped a furious final-minute rally to secure the top 6 finish in the Western Conference. Jalen Duren with 24 points, 11 rebounds. Detroit never trailed in a 117-95 victory over Washington. The Pistons' first game since All-Star guard Cade Cunningham was ruled out for at least 2 weeks with that collapsed left lung. Duren got his 37th double-double in just 25 minutes, 2 nights after scoring a career-high 36 points for the Eastern Conference-leading Detroit Pistons team in their 130-117 win over Washington. From the diamond now, Toronto Blue Jays rookie right-hander Troy Yesevich will begin his first full season in the major leagues on the shelf. Manager John Schneider said Thursday Yesevich will begin the season on the injured list due to a shoulder impingement. Yesevich went 1-0 with a 3.21 ERA in 3 starts after he was called up by the Blue Jays in September, then went 3-1 with a 3.58 ERA and 5 postseason starts. He struck out 39 batters in the playoffs, including a 12 strikeout effort in 7 innings against the Dodgers in Game 5 of the World Series. Man, he is one of our favorite players to watch. Young guy, bright future ahead. We can't wait to get him back on the mound for the Blue Jays. All right, we're going to step aside for a moment. We've got more to come. We're going to talk a little NFL with Ryan Roberts and look ahead to Saturday's matchups as well in round 2 of the NCAA tournament. That's coming up next on the Sports IQ.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free. Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, by the way, in midst of all this college basketball, we've not forgotten about the NFL. We spent a lot of time the past couple of weeks talking about all the free agent stuff. That's still going on, but the big thing now is the draft on the way, and talking more about that and some other things. Ryan Roberts joins us right now, NFL draft analyst. Ryan, good to talk with you. Let's talk about right now in terms of the top of the draft. We've gotten through some pro days. There's still more to come here in the weeks ahead. But a lot of evaluating with all the All-Star Bowl games, the senior games, that kind of thing, and the on-campus evaluations. Where are we right now at the top? Are we still looking at a Mendoza as the first pick, the Heisman Trophy winner, or how are things shaping up right now in the top 10?
Yeah, no, I think it's been kind of slam dunk Mendoza now for like the last couple months, pretty much since the season ended. You knew that's where it was going, especially after Dante Moore decided to go back to Oregon for another year. Like the quarterback one debate was kind of settled at that point, right? So, and you knew that the Raiders going from the Pete Carroll era, now to a different one and shipping off Geno Smith back to New York, which is kind of a crazy little storyline that's happened recently. Like they need a quarterback and they need to turn the page. So I think that one's been set in stone, etched down, it's been written in ink for like a very long time at this point. After that, it's like super interesting because everyone, the noise most out there is the New York Jets are going to take Arvell Reese at number 2. Like that's kind of what most people seem to think. Mm-hmm. We'll see if that's kind of what we know to be true, kind of going more towards the end of April. But I do feel actually pretty good about that right now. After that, though, it's like the pivot point of the draft is the Arizona Cardinals at number 3 because I have no idea what the Arizona Cardinals are going to do. Like zero idea. They're a team that could go offensive line. They could go best player available defensively. Like I truly don't know what they're going to do. Are they a trade back candidate in some capacity for a team that wants to jump up for either offensive tackle 1 or if someone loves Jeremiah Love, the running back at Notre Dame that much and wants to get in front of the Titans? Like I don't exactly know what's going to happen there, but I think we know for certain that it's going to be a pretty defensive heavy top 10. You're going to see Arvell Reese come off. You're going to see Sonny Styles. You're going to see David Bailey. You're going to see Ruben Bain, probably a corner, most likely to Kansas City at number 9, unless something crazy happens there. So I think it's a defensive heavy top 10, but there is still a lot of moving parts. But again, like that pivot point at number 3 to the Cardinals is going to really kind of show just like how the sequencing of the top 10 is going to go, because they're a team that's like very unpredictable for me right now.
Is it unusual for those casual observers who might be listening? Is it usual to have such fluctuation at this time on the calendar, or are things usually more set? Why is it right now that it seems just so wide open after the first couple of picks?
I think it's because it's not a great draft in the top of it, just in general, right? Like we're talking about, and I've talked to some teams that have like 12 first round grades. I've talked to a couple others that have like 8 or 9. So like this is just generally speaking of not top heavy first round in general. So I think when you have a draft that doesn't have these for sure blue chip players, these for sure elite players up top, I think that's going to create some fluctuation. I also think that another big reason for it is this is not a great draft in terms of the premium positions that we hold near and dear to our heart. Like, it's a one quarterback class. Offensive tackle group is like okay, but not great. The edge group is good, but not elite. Like, it's just not that typical draft where you're like offensive tackles, defensive ends, quarterbacks, like they're going to run early on in the draft typically. It's just not this draft. This year is actually weird because it's like you have a running back that's going to go in the top 10 who is probably, if not the best player of the draft, the top 2 or 3 player in the draft, Jeremiah Love. And then you have a great safety class. You have a great linebacker class. Like, it's just not the positions that you usually say, like, that is great. I mean, there's a legit argument, or that should be valued that high anyway. There's a legit argument that the best 4 players in this class are 2 linebackers, a running back, and a safety. Like, that's just not typical for a draft. So I think when it's an atypical draft in terms of the players available, and it's one that doesn't have these elite blue chip players up top, I think that's going to create a little bit of fluctuation, especially this time of year now that we're kind of whirling through pro days and 30 visits and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. Who do you think will be maybe the most active in the draft, or I guess with the number of picks they have, and like you said, the way the evaluations are going, who stands a chance to maybe to get the most out of this? I mean, I think about the Dolphins during, again, just a complete with the Tua situation and change of coaches, and they are not only, turning over the page, they're like basically getting a new book out and starting like chapter 1. I mean, they are, who has it? Who do you think will come out of this draft? I guess being changed or improved the most, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that the Miami Dolphins was the first one that came to mind because I followed it extremely closely because my dad is actually a Miami Dolphins fan. So like I've had to help him with his agony recently with just kind of some of the transitional stuff, right? And it looks bleak right now on paper. The roster's not very good. It feels like they're kind of setting themselves up to maybe be very high in the 2027 NFL draft and maybe get their quarterback at that point. But they have 7 picks in the top 100 this year, right? Mm-hmm. So like they have a chance if they do it well. And John Eric Sullivan, who came from Green Bay, has a good reputation. He comes from a organization that has typically drafted well and has prioritized things a certain way. I do think that they have a chance to come out of this in a good spot, and they need to, honestly. Like let's say they come out in a couple years from now, we're like, man, they missed on like 5 of those 7 picks. You're just like, well, they're going to keep doing exactly what they've been doing and just kind of continue to trend downward, right? So I think the Dolphins have to hit. I think another one that's like super interesting is the Kansas City Chiefs, in the sense of like they had the 9th pick and then they traded, so they have the back end of the first round pick from the Rams from the Trent McDuffie deal. But they are a team that, in theory, right, when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback and you have a Hall of Fame head coach, like in theory, and you have a really good defensive coordinator in Spagnuolo, like on paper, you're like, that team still should have a winning window open, but they don't have a secondary right now. Like they lost Jalen Watson in free agency. They traded Trent McDuffie. Joshua Williams left in free agency. Brian Cook left in free agency. Like they don't have a secondary right now. And although there's been a renaissance of running game the last couple of years, it is still a passing league nowadays, right? So like if you don't have a secondary, it's kind of hard to imagine that you're going to win a ton of football games, even if you have Patrick Mahomes, on top of the fact that he might miss maybe a little bit of the season coming off of his injury as well. So they're a really interesting team because they have the 2 first-round picks, and I think they really need to hit it because like they have a need on offensive tackle. They have needs on the defensive side of the football, on the interior defensive line, defensive end, and in the secondary. Like they have a bunch of glaring needs, and if they want to keep this winning window open, I think the Kansas City Chiefs need to be winners in this draft.
Talking with Ryan Roberts, he's an NFL draft analyst, and it's funny you mentioned Kansas City. That was the next team I was going to go to on my list of questions here. In terms of, so it's funny we're kind of on the same page thinking about those teams. I want to get to kind of randomly throw out there the Dallas Cowboys, and I use that because Jerry Jones ain't getting any younger, and it has now been 30 years since their last trip. I mean, that is an eternity for any franchise, especially one as revered as the Cowboys. What can they do here in this offseason to get them over the hump?
Yeah, well, I was listening to another show. I think it was the Athletic Football Show that was kind of talking about this a little bit of like a free agency recap. And like they didn't touch offense, but like they don't need to touch offense. The offense on paper is quite good, right? Like, and they did well last year. So like this is a championship-ish offense already on paper. So they didn't need to touch that too well. But on the defensive side of the ball, you're looking at that team now and saying you have needs, obviously, on the back end in the secondary. You could touch corner and you could touch safety. You also are a really bad situation at linebacker, and you could use more juice on the defensive line, especially after you traded Oso Digizua, right? So, like, you need guys on that defense. There's no question about it. So I really think, like, they have the 12th and they have the 20th pick. They need to go defensive heavy to start this draft. Like, there's no question. And they're in a weird situation, though, because while you have 2 top 20 picks, and in theory, both of those players should be able to come in and help you, we also know that the draft can be very hit or miss, even early in the class. So, like, there is a high possibility that one of those 2 picks is not going to do a ton for you as a rookie. Like, it's just the reality there. If maybe both don't do a ton and they're more like year 2 breakout types of players. But regardless, like, they need some impacts. I mean, right now, with obviously Trayvon Diggs gone and he was depreciating even before he left, and I know they signed Kobe Durant from the Rams to kind of help with like the nickel outside situation, but they are a team that needs desperate help on the back end of the defense and on the second level. So I think they're a team that might look for potentially the best corner available at number 12, maybe a safety, depending on how the corner board falls. And then they almost like, I almost feel like we need to just write in pen like CJ Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia, them at 20, because like it's a good linebacker class, but again, like what's more likely that you get first round value out of a linebacker year 1, or you're going to pick a guy in the 3rd round and he's going to be a massive hit off the bat, right? So like they're a team that's just in really weird flux because offensively they're ready to compete, but defensively they have a lot of work that they need to do.
Yeah. I want to get to kind of the opposite end. So we talked about overall the team that could improve the most here coming up in the draft. How about the contender that has that they're just one or two draft pieces away? And we've seen Buffalo be very active and get Josh Allen more weapons, much needed weapons. Their changes with the Ravens this year. The Eagles came up short after winning it all a year ago. Rams are right there. The Bears are on the up. What's that kind of contending team that maybe if they do well with their couple of picks, they could make the next move and rise in 2026?
I think it's the Rams. I mean, I really do, because I mean, the Rams were a few plays against the Seahawks in the playoffs last year away from probably winning the Super Bowl themselves, right? So, like, I mean, they were, in my opinion, the second best team in the NFL last year, and they had 3 awesome battles against Seattle last year. So, I think that they're a team that's right on the cuff, because it also goes like it's paralleled with the fact that I think Seattle's just kind of been stagnant this offseason. They've just kind of let some guys go. So, like, they're a team that I think is going to kind of at best stay the same, but at worst, they might trend downward slightly, right? So, like, the Rams have a window here, and they've been ultra aggressive this offseason, going to get Trent McDuffie, signing Jalen Watson in free agency as well. So, like, they have shored up their weakest point last year, the secondary. You have Matthew Stafford coming back from an MVP this past season, played at an all-time level. You have Puka Nacua, you have Devontae Adams. Like, you have a lot of pieces. And the key thing there is, like, they gave up a lot to get Trent McDuffie, but they had 2 first-round picks. So they still have number 13 that could be a player that comes in and plays immediately. Maybe it's a luxury guy too. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they go wide receiver at number 13 to just kind of give Matthew Stafford all the weapons in the world, especially with Devontae Adams kind of nearing the end of his NFL career. So I really think that they are in a position where if they knock the 13th pick out of the park, because the one thing you can always depend on with the Rams is Les Snead, although he says F them picks and will trade away early rounders a lot, he always hits on his day 3 picks. Like, Puka was a day 3 pick. Kyron Williams was a day 3 pick. Cooper Kupp was a 3rd round pick. John Johnson a few years ago was like a 5th rounder out of Boston College. Like, he always hits on day 3 picks. So if he hits on 1 or 2 day 3 guys this year and he gets a nice player that can come in and help you at number 13, I think the Rams will probably be the number 1 team on a lot of power ratings, like, to begin the season. But I really do think that they can kind of put an exclamation mark on their off season with a big draft this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great information. And I'm thinking ahead now to what maybe my last question here. And give me a couple of players in this draft you think will make a big impact in year 1. Obviously, situation, and that figures into it. But as we stand here right now in March, a couple of players you think will maybe make the biggest impact as rookies.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think a big one for me is, and it's an easy one because I also cover Notre Dame and I have a Notre Dame fandom, but like, I think Jeremiah Love is going to have a huge impact on whether that is the Washington Commanders at 7, and they want to try to get back to more of that playoff conversation they were in, obviously, in 2024 when they made the playoffs. Even if it's the Tennessee Titans, who are a greatly improved team from a year ago at number 4. If there's the New York Giants with John Harbaugh, like there's a few teams I think could get a ready-made superstar at running back like Jeremiah Love and could be extremely optimistic for the immediate payback because he's going to be in a much, I think if it's any of those 3 teams I just named, he's going to be in a better situation than like what Ashton Genty was a year ago when he walked into that Raiders mess, right? So I think Jeremiah Love has an opportunity to come in and do some great things early. And then I am actually infatuated, although I don't think the Jets are going to be a great team next year. I think they'll probably be kind of a below average team or at best. But I do think that Arvell Reese is going to surprise some folks because I think we have somewhat underrated his ability to play early as a true stacked linebacker and a guy that can play on the second level. I think everyone's just kind of really pigeonholed him to like he's an edge guy on the next level. I don't think that that's true. I think he's a guy that is legitimately like he reminds me of LeVar Arrington, like back in the day where it was like LeVar would play on the second level a lot, and then on obvious passing situations, then he would come down and he would play on the edge and he would do a lot of those types of stuff. So I think that he is a true hybrid player in the best sense. There's a big difference between being versatile and being a tweener. I do not think that Arvell Reese is a tweener. I think he's versatile and he can do a lot of different things. So I think that he could have a nice year one impact as well.
Okay. We mentioned Notre Dame a couple of times. Let me get in a Notre Dame question here. I'm done with NFL draft questions, but Notre Dame question. Carson Tout signing, explain, we were talking in the break before we started, explain how he's able to sign today.
Yeah. I mean, I admittedly, and we talked about this, I was very confused when he signed with the Indianapolis Colts. I thought he was going to get signed after the draft because it had come out before weeks ago that like Carson Tout was going to try to play tight end on the NFL level. You're like, okay, that's interesting. And then he signs and you're just like, doesn't he have to go through the pre-draft process? Well, the whole thing is like he had a redshirt year in 2019 as a basketball player. He had the COVID year in 2020. So like this is a graduate student. Like he in his window of playing football, like he couldn't have played football even this past year if he wanted to because his clock had run out at that point. So he is basically an ineligible draft participant. He is just strictly a free agent. That's what he was. And I was told, and I think it was like Stephen Holder from The Athletic had also reported it, and I got kind of the same information, was that he was actually in Indianapolis at the Combine a few weeks ago with his agent to talk to teams then to kind of generate that interest. So it sounds like there was actually pretty good feedback. I mean, he's a very interesting player. And he was like a 30-something% free throw shooter. So like there was no basketball future for Carson Tout, but at 6'7", 6'8", 250 pounds. And he was always a really good rebounder, whether it was at Northern Arizona or Notre Dame. So he's a big guy with soft hands. I don't know if it's going to transition well because he's never played football before, but like he's got an opportunity in front of him now. And Indianapolis did have some success with Mo Alley Cox pretty recently, who was also a basketball player too, right? So they've done the convergence stuff before, but we'll see if it works out for him. But yeah, he was not eligible for this draft, which is why he was able to sign by the Colts.
There we go. Well, I know you're the guy to explain that, and you did it so very eloquently. Ryan, great to talk with you, man. Hopefully we get a chance to chat again before we get to the draft day here in late April.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Appreciate it so much. Ryan Roberts joining us once again, NFL draft analyst, and that's coming up here in late April. It's before you know it. A lot of basketball between now and then, but again, keeping our eye on the NFL as well. Okay, stay with us. Sports IQ with Larry Smith continues after this.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past 2 years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
Looking at now to Saturday's mattress as we begin the round of 32. And producer Tony, we were saying 4 double-digit seeds won games on Thursday, and that creates kind of an interesting, outlook here for Saturday. You were saying in the commercial break, one of those teams, at least one, is going to pull another upset and get to the Sweet 16.
Absolutely. There's been at least one double-digit seed every year in the last 20 years has made the Sweet 16. At least one has managed to win 2 games. And we got 4 shots at it. And all 4 of those games, I think, are going to be competitive. I don't think any one of the 4 is going to be a blowout. You look at that Texas A&M Houston game. First of all, they're right near each other, right? And there's no love lost. They're dating all the way back to their Southwest Conference days together. And Buckyball is impressive. When I saw them come out, and after they made the first basket, they turned over St. Mary's with a 10 count. St. Mary's couldn't get it across half court the very first time. I knew St. Mary's was in trouble. And the fact that they could not shoot because A&M was playing tough defense all along. Houston has trouble scoring. And if Buckyball and that defense pressure gets to them, it could be another tough night for them to get points on the board.
Yeah. They're a very different, it's a very different team, the Texas A&M team. And Houston, this is not quite the Houston team we've seen in the past. Very, very good team. Kelvin Sampson, one of the best coaches in the game. But you're right. This is not the dominant team we've seen earlier this decade. And so this would be really interesting. By the way, we've talked a lot about how I believe Texas is kind of the next center of college sports because there's so much money there. And with the NIL thing, look at the Texas schools that we've got in the round of 32. You've got A&M, you've got Houston, Texas, TCU as well. SMU made the dance, but didn't win a game. So all these Texas schools are in play, including Texas Gonzaga. The Bulldogs look rather pedestrian against Kennesaw State. This is another good matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the potential was there to blow Kennesaw State out, and Gonzaga couldn't do it. Every time they'd get a little bit of a lead, Kennesaw State would claw back into the game and drop it back down. And, they wound up, winning by 10 or 9 or whatever the heck the number was, but it wasn't a dominating performance by any stretch. And, Texas has had their trouble closing out the games, but they start quick, they start fast, they're shooting well, and they seem to be playing with a confidence they hadn't had in the last few weeks. So they're one to be leery of. And let's not look past High Point. How about the High Point coach, Larry, who came out and said, after getting the win, going, hey, you majors had better start learning to play us. We're ready. We are not to be overlooked. We can compete with the big boys if you give us the chance. And we heard that from Coach Holmes at Miami of Ohio, that the majors, because of the way the metrics are set up by the committee, quadrant 2 and quadrant 3 losses are not acceptable. They won't play these mid-majors. Yeah. Maybe that'll shake things up a little bit, but High Point is going to they're playing Arkansas, I believe. They're going to give the Razorbacks everything they want, especially a thin Razorback team that only likes to play 7.
Yeah, exactly. And a team, too, that I think is interesting is the Illinois VCU matchup. How about the Illini? The fans there loved the draw when they first got in. They felt they could play with Houston. They actually beat Florida in a secret scrimmage back in October. They had a Penn team they felt they matched up well with, and they felt that they could take care of North Carolina or VCU. But the one Achilles heel for Illinois this season has been fast guards. And Terrence Hill Jr. is one of those. We saw him bring the Rams back from 19 down against North Carolina. It's an intriguing matchup to see. Illinois is a bigger team. I mean, they're better shooters. They're bigger. But can the speed of VCU cause some problems?
Yeah, I think that's something to be wary of. I think VCU can cause some problems. I think that's going to come down to be a very tight game. It's going to be incumbent upon the Illinois team to use their height advantage. VCU is not a very tall team. They're not very big in the front court. They need to use that advantage, and some of those European guys need to get a little more nasty than they have been in the past to help Illinois out.
Yeah, David Mirkovic was unbelievable. 29 points, 17 rebounds. That's a nasty double-double for your first ever NCAA tournament game. Pretty impressive. One more question for you, my friend. Duke, TCU, the Blue Devils really struggled to get past Virginia last week in the ACC final. They were down for 30 minutes against Siena. This Duke team right now, are they really missing Ngamba that much and the injury guys?
Yeah, I think they are. I think Ngaba makes a whole big difference in there. You're asking a lot of Cam Boozer to not only defensively hold down the middle, but also offensively go and handle the scoring. They've lost their point guard. Caden Boozer has paid really well, but he's not used to starting, maybe getting a little bit fatigued and tired. And again, they don't play a lot of guys. They don't play a lot of people. TCU can come at them with more people. I don't think TCU gets it done, but I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think Duke's going to have to sweat another one out. And every time you sweat one out, that's, you're kind of using that magic potion, those little fairy dust that keeps you from losing games. And at some point down the tournament, you go to reach into the bag and there's no more dust.
Yeah. Jamie Dixon, the TCU coach as well. One of those guys that always has a tremendous regular season record, has not had much success in March. Can he come through and, knock that pixie, as you're talking about the dust, off his shoulder and get that? So we'll see what happens Saturday. All right. Our moment of all is up next.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
All right, time now for a moment of awe. We go back to on this day in 1965, UCLA defeating Michigan 91-80 in the first title game matchup of the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the AP poll. UCLA led by senior Gail Goodrich, who scored a then record 42 points. It was the Bruins' second straight national title, and truly our moment of awe. Thanks so much for everyone stopping by today. We appreciate our guests. Mike Waters talking Syracuse, Ryan Roberts talking NFL. Thanks to you for being here and putting up with my voice. I'm going to work on getting a lot of hot tea over the weekend, and we'll come back strong on Monday here on the Sports IQ. Enjoy the games.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.